Okay, so the first step in making our cinnamon buns is going to be to take our 1 cup of milk and put that into a small saucepan. And we're just going to put that on the small burner and just heat that up, stirring constantly until it reaches almost a boil. You don't want it to actually boil, just almost to a boil. And then we'll come back and put that into our mixer bowl. All right, so once your milk has been warmed up, you can see that there's bubbles all around the outside edge of my milk now. So that means that it's just warm enough. You can see the steam coming off of it. So this is gonna help us with the rest of the recipe. So go ahead and pour that into your mixer bowl. I'm using my KitchenAid mixer with my dough hook attachment, but you can do this by hand. You'll just need to be careful because the milk is warm, so in the beginning use a rubber spatula just to combine everything together. All right, so now that I have my milk in my mixer bowl, I'm gonna add in the rest of my ingredients. So I'll go ahead and get my spatula again. I'm gonna be adding in to the warm milk, I'm gonna be adding in my butter. So I've got 4 tablespoons of butter already measured out. So we'll go ahead and scoop that into the warm milk. Melt in there, so you can kind of see it melting as it kind of mixes in, and you can break this up into smaller bits. I had it already pre-measured, so it sort of melted together, but you can just put it in 1 tablespoon at a time. So 4 tablespoons of butter or margarine right into your warmed milk. Now you can use any milk. I use skim milk, but you can use any milk that you like. It can even be like a lactose-free milk as well. So that's our butter, and into the butter we want to also add our sugar. So I've got pre-measured my 1/4 cup of sugar, so we'll go ahead and stick that in, and then from there we're also going to be adding in some salt. So I've got a 1/2 teaspoon of table salt. You can use sea salt as well. All right, so now we have those in. We're gonna mix these together. I let this cool down just a little bit here and got that all mixed in together. So now what we're going to be doing is adding our yeast. So I'm going to go ahead and lift my mixer up, and I'm going to be adding 2 teaspoons and a half of yeast, and I'm just using the packets of Quick Rise instant yeast. So I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle that in. I'm also going to add in an egg, and I'm using a large egg. Okay, and now I'm going to turn this back on, and I'm going to be slowly incorporating in my flour. So I've got here today 3 1/2 cups of flour, and I'm just using all-purpose flour. So I'm gonna go ahead and start mixing this and slowly adding in my flour little by little into this as it mixes together. Okay, so we're gonna let this knead for about 2 minutes now that it's completely come away from the sides of our bowl. And then we're going to let it rise in the same bowl, covered with a saran wrap or a kitchen towel if you don't have any saran wrap. And we're gonna let that rise for 1 hour. Okay, so we're back and our dough has risen to twice its size in an hour. So I'm gonna set that aside and let you know what we did for our filling as well before we get started with rolling. So the filling, we have 6 tablespoons of butter or margarine. We have 2/3 a cup of packed brown sugar. So you wanna pack that down tightly so you have enough. And I also have 1 tablespoon of cinnamon mixed with 1 teaspoon of flour. I'm going to be putting this all together. I'm gonna roll out the dough onto my surface, and then I'm going to top it with the butter or margarine and then mix together my sugar and cinnamon mix and spread that all over the top. And then we're gonna roll it up and we're gonna prep a pan, a 9x13 baking pan with some spray or butter. You just wanna grease the pan. And then we're gonna cut apart our roll. So first in half, then in half again, and then each of those quarters will get cut in 3. So all told, we'll have 12 rolls. I'm gonna put those back in the baking pan and let those sit for another hour to rise some more. And then we're gonna go ahead and bake them at 350 degrees for 20 minutes. So I've gone ahead and rolled my dough out, and this should be about 12 inches by 10 inches. I'm just guesstimating, so it's not exact. So I'm gonna go ahead and spread now my margarine. So go ahead and start spreading that over. Don't be shy, get it all the way to the edges. Okay, so we've got our mixture here of our brown sugar, cinnamon, and flour. And I'm gonna go ahead and sprinkle this on top. Okay, so now we're gonna roll up our dough. Just trying to keep it as tight as we can here. So now that we have our roll completed, we're gonna go ahead and slice it. So just gonna measure half here. And with a serrated knife, like a bread knife, go ahead and cut in half. Then take that half. And again, cutting in half. And then each of these quarters is going to be cut into 3 rolls. So just be sure wherever your edges are, as best you can, to pinch them together. It'll just help to keep these together. And you can get some of that extra flour onto your knife. That will help. Oops. Okay, so we're gonna start stacking our cinnamon buns into the pan. And I always put them pretty side up. So we'll get another 3 in there. Okay, so there we've got our cinnamon buns. We're gonna let these rise for another hour. I'm just gonna cover my pan with saran wrap again, and you'll see that these will continue just to grow together a little bit more. I am using a slightly larger pan, so mine will have a little bit of extra room as well. And you can rest your dough a little longer than I did as well. I only left it an hour in the bowl, and I'm gonna leave about another hour in the pan just to time it out so that these are ready to put in the oven after I'm done with supper. But you can leave yours longer if you want them to be bigger and fluffier, just to allow them to rise a little bit more. So I'm gonna go ahead and cover mine up, and we'll come back and show you how these look after they've risen, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so here's what the cinnamon buns look like after they've risen for another hour in the pan. You can see that most of the gaps are filled up except for around the end pieces. There's still a little bit of gaps because those turned out a bit smaller than the middle. But I'm gonna go ahead and pop these in the oven for 20 minutes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And we'll come back and see what they look like when they're all done, and I'm gonna spread them with some cream cheese icing to enjoy. There you have it. Our cinnamon buns have finished cooking. They're pretty much filling the whole pan, and they've risen about twice as high as they were before I put them in. So you can cook these as long as you like. I like mine to stay a little bit springy, just so when you press down on them, it should just spring up a little bit. But if you see your fingerprint still in the dough, they need to be cooked for a little while longer. So mine are looking really good. Some of the middles have popped up, but we'll get them pressed back down. So like I said, I'm just using store-bought whipped, this is actually called a whipped cream cheese frosting. So I'm gonna go ahead and spread this on while my cinnamon buns are still warm. And that's just gonna let that kind of melt all over.